I asked you, why do cities grow outwards? So go ahead and think about, why do cities grow outwards? And you can see this is part one. There's going to be another part. This one has to do with population growth. So as the city gets bigger with population, so more people are living there, the city is naturally going to bulge outwards. What causes the city to grow? Well, one of the main things is economic pull factors. In other words, economic reasons that people are going to be drawn into the city, which means mostly jobs and more money. And if the city sits on a flat landscape, that allows for horizontal movement of the city, for the city to sprawl outwards. Of course, transportation routes are the logical avenues for growth, as we just saw in the previous video. And that growth then connects smaller urban centers, creating conurbation, and then the land between these transportation routes slowly fills in, and urban sprawl then homogenizes the landscape. Remember this model that I created? That's right. I mean, it's not really my model. I just made a version of it. That shows ribbon development, so the city growing outwards along the transportation routes, which then, as a result of that, connects other smaller urban centers. That's conurbation, the grouping together of cities due to massive urban growth. Urban sprawl, which literally means the city is sprawling outwards across the landscape. And then, in this case, a multi-nuclei city, very much like Los Angeles is, with each of those urban centers having their own characteristics. You also remember the Hoyt sector model. First, notice this. This is basically the city, that round circle. But notice where the purple's at. Zone number 2, the transportation industry corridor. And notice how it stretches out on both sides beyond the normal city limits, right? That's kind of the way ribbon development happens. And then you can see that these neighborhoods here and here, which is zone number 3, are also stretching out beyond the regular city limits. And of course, we know the multi-nuclei peripheral models, which are very similar models to each other. This just means that you have multiple places that people are actually going to work at. Everybody doesn't go into the central business district. People might be going to multiple nodes. You might be going into Anaheim to work, for example, at Disneyland, or to Santa Ana to work in the legal system that's in Santa Ana. The centers there for the county. You might go to Long Beach and work at the ports. I mean, it's all of these different things that could be happening, and you would never even go into the center of Los Angeles. But as a city sprawls outwards, it creates, first of all, a suburban landscape, the suburbs. Urb is the Latin word for city, and sub means below. So it doesn't literally mean below the city, but it means outwards away from the city. And the characteristics of a suburban landscape are these. There's low density housing, lower population density as a result of the low density housing. So in other words, there's not a lot of 5, 6, 7, 8-story buildings that people are living in. Single family homes dominate. These are mostly owner occupied, so not as many renters as there are owners, quantitatively. And access to the jobs and services of the larger city complex through public or private transportation. Remember, with Walter Christaller, we learned that what happens is a large urban center has more services, and then a smaller urban center has less services. So you have all of the access to all of those services, including the jobs that are associated with all those services and everything else that's going on in the city. And originally, at least, the suburban landscape had less diversity, human diversity. Now, that may change over time, but originally that's the way it was. And look, I don't like to talk about this, but it has to be spoken. It's that simple. Originally, many of the people who moved into the suburbs were probably seeking less diversity. There, I said it. I'm not saying this is a good thing. I'm just saying that that is the fact. And if you look at the concentric zone model, you can see that I have highlighted with the arrows where the suburban zone would have been, the zone of better residences, as he called it. Lakewood's a classic example of this. In fact, Lakewood even shows up in some urban geography textbooks. And you can see on the right-hand side that the houses are very similar. You can see on the left-hand side what they look like. But the houses are very similar to each other. And they're built overwhelmingly on 5,000 square foot lots. And the houses are anywhere from 950 to about 1,300 square feet. All of them are originally, at least, one bathroom houses, and they were either 2-bedroom, 1-bath, or 3-bedroom, 1-bath houses. That was it. Absolute classic suburban sprawl, a suburban development. And I mentioned Cerritos before, because Cerritos kind of would have been on the edge of the city at one point when it was converted from dairy farms into a suburban landscape, or even a kind of version of an ex-urban landscape at one point. In Cerritos, what happened was they learned from Lakewood, because Cerritos is a little bit younger than Lakewood. The lot size is very similar, 5,000 to maybe 7,000 square feet, but the houses are bigger, as you could see. The houses are more like 1,500 to 2,500 square feet and multiple bathrooms. Then when you got really far out away from the city, you enter into what's known as the exurban landscape, or the exurbs. Ex means literally away from in Latin. And the characteristics of the exurbs are these. It's a semi-rural setting at the edges of a city. It may not even be connected to the city directly, so it may not be part of the overall urban sprawl, but it's within a commutable distance to the city. They're large lots, in some cases very large lots, large single-family homes. They're owner-occupied. They have flexible laws regarding farm animals in a lot of cases, so chickens and goats and cows and horses, people might have those things there. And there's very, very little diversity. If you look at the concentric zone model, you can see this is zone number 5, right on the edge of the city, what is almost not even the city anymore. These are exurbs that are near Dallas. Dallas is kind of a famous place for exurbs. And you can see it's a kind of semi-rural setting. This also, park-like atmosphere in a lot of ways. You can see it's a golf course over there to the right-hand side. But you can see it has very much kind of a rural feel to it. It's exurban housing. You can see how that house on the top could potentially be connected to some place where they have chickens or they have goats or whatever. You can see that. Remember ribbon development in Southern California? Here's Los Angeles right here. Los Angeles was able to grow outwards along the 5 as it goes to the north. It was able to grow to the west along the 101. It was able to grow to the east along the 210 and the 10 and the 60 and the 91, all of which then connect up with the 15, which allow the city complex to stretch up beyond the San Gabriel Mountains up into the high desert, and then come down like this all the way down to Temecula on the 15, and then of course come down into Orange County along the 5 and into the 405. This is what has allowed Los Angeles to grow outwards the way it has, because it's been able to follow these massive transportation routes. Urban sprawl is common throughout the United States, and it's created a number of megacities, even something that's called Megalopolis. Megalopolis originally referred to the area from Washington, D.C. to Boston, and that included Baltimore, Philadelphia, and New York City. Take a look at it. So this is the original Megalopolis on the left-hand side, a map of it that was written about in 1960, and then you can see at night what it looks like with all of that electricity lighting that area up. You can see it's basically one large sprawling city, even though there's a lot of wooded land there and farmland there. Nevertheless, there is a kind of urban sprawl that happens almost the entire way from Washington, D.C. all the way up to Boston. And then you can see there's multiple versions of megalopolises. You can see the one in Southern California, I already mentioned that, LA County, Orange County, Riverside County, San Bernardino County, Ventura counties, right? But then up here in Northern California, we have another version of it. In Northern California, it's the Bay Area around San Francisco, San Jose, Oakland, Stockton, Sacramento. Then up what this map is calling Cascadia, which is another one. And you can see this is basically Portland, stretches all the way up to Seattle, kind of includes Vancouver even. And then you can see in Arizona, the Arizona Sun Corridor. This is Flagstaff to Phoenix to Tucson, right in here. And then the Front Range, which goes from up here where Denver and Boulder are at, down through Colorado Springs, all the way down to Albuquerque. You can see the area around the Great Lakes, all of that area there. Whoops, sorry, there we go. There's the Great Lakes area, which is lots of cities, right? Milwaukee, Chicago, Gary, Indiana, Detroit, Lansing, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Erie, Buffalo, where my family's from, Rochester, New York, all of those places. Then down here, the Texas Triangle, right? The Texas Triangle is Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. Includes Austin in that. I mean, even though Austin's not the main city, it's an important city because, you know, it's Austin, right? It's kind of the happening city, isn't it? And then you can see the Gulf Coast, right? What do we have? Houston, really, all the way through New Orleans. Down over here, the Piedmont Atlantic area, right? That right in there, which is really centered on Atlanta, but it includes everything from Birmingham over here to Charlotte, and then all of this stuff in Florida that's along what's called the I-95 corridor from Miami in the south all the way up to Jacksonville, including things like Orlando and Tampa, and then you can see the original Northeast megalopolis right there. So all of these are kind of seen as mega cities.